So last week we were talking about the girl at the well and all the weaknesses that she had endured, how she had to go to the well at noon, which is a sign of her trying to duck away and out of society's glances and views because of what they thought about her. And we don't know exactly what the society she lived in thought about her, but we can understand that from her interaction with Jesus and the way that she looked in the world, the way that she looked at the world, she lived according to the flesh. And we know that after she encountered Jesus, she went out in her town and she told everybody about this guy who she said changed her life. But we don't actually know if that changed anything. We don't know if there was any spiritual growth or not. The story kind of stops. And so we're left to wonder. The reality is that although she encountered this guy, Jesus, who obviously had this insight into who she was and how she was living her life, and so much so that she had to go and tell everybody about it, the reality is that if she didn't accept that, if she didn't say, yeah, I'm gonna do something about this guy who's come into my life, it might not have changed her life. Which is our reality, that our relationship with God is not compulsory. There is a no. You can say no, you can deny God. We understand that Jesus came for everybody. That's everybody's favorite verse, John 3:16, for God so loved the world. But there's a no. If you keep reading, John 3:18 says very clearly, but those who lived in darkness chose darkness rather than come into the light. Which is to say that we can put ourselves first. We can put ourselves first. We can follow our desires. We can follow our experiences. I love experiences. I love trying new things. I hope to maybe, skydive. I hope some of you have done that. You can fill me in on whether or not that should happen, right? But as soon as we start filling our life with other things that we want, or with work, or with family, and there is no end to this list, it just goes on and on and on. As soon as we start doing that, we've decided to say no. The beauty is our God forgives us when we do those things. The amazing thing is our God forgives us in ways that people will never forgive other people. That's what makes God so amazing, is that He can forgive us in these ways. But while there is nothing that can separate us from the love of God, we don't have to accept it. The only thing that can separate us really, truly from the love of God is ourself. See, God gives us this grace, and what I mean by grace is a free gift. There is no hurdle to this gift. God says, I love you. I want you to have salvation. I want you to have a better life now. I want you to have a better life now, and I want you to have that life eternally. And when you meet me, I will be your judge. This is something we read today. But I will forgive you of all of those things that I know that you've done. Things that you don't even know that you've done. I will forgive you of those things, and I'm going to do it for free, but we have to accept that. We still have to receive that. If we don't accept it, if we refuse it, if we don't recognize it, if we marginalize it, if we put God on the outside, or if we take it for granted, then what's the good of grace? What's the good of this free gift if you don't know the value of it? The woman at the well, she was lost and she was sinful. She misprioritized her life, and she had to live with that consequence. Now, she enjoyed a relationship for a brief moment of time with Jesus, and that might have changed her life. We don't know. But what we do know is when Christ came up to her, He didn't see all of the things that she had done. That was not the thing He was concerned about. He saw into her the beauty that she was. She could have gone back to the world that she was living in, that would have robbed her of everything Jesus had brought her up to that point, which is what happened in our Bible reading today. The Pharisees, these guys, these are the men who say who God is, these Pharisees. They're the most learned people in the society. They're the most powerful people in society. They're the ones who make or break you. They're the ones who know all about what God has to say in the world. When they looked at this sinful man, they said, oh, you know what he is? He's a sinner. His parents are a sinner. The world he lives in is full of sin because of him. That this guy is the most worthless that there is. That was the implication that the Pharisees were saying, that this blind man was a little bit better than a dog. This is the world that this blind man lived in. He was told by everybody he was a whole bunch of nothing. Don't step in him. So he went to the market and he begged, because that was all the value he could provide to the world, was a leech. And so he did. Now, Jesus knows better. The very first thing Jesus says about this guy is, no, this man didn't sin, and his parents didn't sin. Jesus doesn't even quibble about it. He's very clear. Look, this guy's situation has nothing to do with his sin. His value has nothing to do with his blindness. Who he is has nothing to do with whatever you see. That is not who this blind man is. He is something else. And Jesus goes on and says, look, in fact, his weakness, this blind man's weakness, the thing that all of you can't get past, his weakness, that's going to be for the glory of God. Paul says as much in 2 Corinthians. He says, my grace, this is God talking, my grace, says God, is sufficient, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. The blind man, like the woman at the well, didn't realize what God was doing when he was doing it. You would think he'd realize it. Oh, I can see now. You would think that would be kind of a tip, right? Hey, by the way, you're blind and now you see. Maybe something special has happened here. I just imagine this guy going home, and he's finally made his way home, and he's living with his parents, and his parents, how are things today? He said, oh, it was good. I went to the market, and, I stepped in a pile of poo because I was blind, and I sat down, and I was begging, and somebody came up to me, and I thought, hey, good, I'm going to get some shekels or something so I can buy some bread, and he puts mud in my eyes, and I go and I wash in the river, and I see this smoking hot Samaritan getting water, and then I come home. Wait, you saw what? It's like he doesn't even get it. He doesn't understand. I can't believe that he doesn't get it, but he doesn't get it. In fact, when they ask him, hey, who made you see? Some dude, Jesus, I don't know. That's what he says. Verse 11, he says, some man, Jesus. I tell you, some guy jump-starts my car, I'm going to get his last name. I'm going to find out who he is. Make me see again. Some guy, Jesus says, it's like he couldn't remember. It was either Larry the Cable Guy or maybe Jesus the Messiah. I'm going to go with some guy, Jesus. I think that was his name. Maybe Jesus? I'm not real sure. How do you pronounce it? Some guy, Jesus, is all he can come up with at first. And he has to tell the story, and then he has to retell the story. And something happens. The first time he tells the story, it's just him telling the story. It's like he's just living his life like the rest of us. He's just going through the motions. He's just trying to get up on the wave instead of getting attacked by it. But the second time, they bring him back in. They say, hey, what happened to you? Who did this to you? He changes his story a little bit. He says, well, you know what? It must have been this guy, this prophet guy. Yeah, he was a prophet, this prophet Jesus. Now, prophet is a very different man. Okay, so you've got a man. You've got a man of God. That would be like me or the Pharisees, okay? But then you have a guy who God is with. A man who God is with, who the Spirit of God is upon, that's a prophet. That is a man who is directed by God directly. Who God talks to, works through, acts in, and creates miracles. This is a man of power, of renown. Somebody who would have outranked the Pharisees. And so all of a sudden, he just changed the story of this once blind guy. He said, look, the guy who I encountered, he has more authority than you, is what he's saying. It was an attack. Don't get lost in the words and think that he was just saying some words. No. He was saying, you Pharisees, and everything you've ever said, everything that you've ever proclaimed, this guy, the one who made me see, is more powerful, more knowing than you are. Which set the stage immediately. This was not going to be a nice and a gentle interaction. This was going to have to be something more. And it was. Because when you say that there is a prophet, the first thing Israel does is try and kill that prophet. Without doubt. Because what do prophets do? They come into our life and they tell us how we're not living it, and we don't want to listen to them. And the best way to make them stop is to stone them. So as soon as this blind man said that this was a prophet, he basically condemned Jesus to death. Jesus knew this. His disciples didn't, not yet. But there were side effects to this. Because when Jesus enters into your life, it doesn't just stop there. See, Jesus says, I'm going to enter into your life. I'm going to enter your life, and when I get into your life, you're going to have blessings that you didn't even realize were possible. This blind man didn't pray to be healed. When Jesus came up to him, he didn't ask, heal me, heal my sight. He didn't ask for that. He didn't ask for it because he didn't even know it was possible. When Jesus enters into your life, the impossible happens like it did with this blind man. But there's more that happens, because as soon as Jesus enters into your life, the life that you lived now has to change. It cannot be the same. That blind man is now at odds with the world around him. He used to go to the temple. That was his livelihood. He lost his job. He can't go to the temple. He's not blind anymore. He doesn't need to go to the temple to beg. But what does he do? Does he bake? Is he a stonemason? Does this guy have any ability? His entire world just got flushed down the tubes because he got his sight back. Thanks, Jesus. Wow, that's exactly what happened, though. Jesus is a blessing. So much blessing. And if you look at it wrong, so much curse. Because now this guy's gotten thrown out of the temple. They threw him out. We don't know if this is temporary, we don't know if this is permanent, but we know that the life that he lived no longer is the way that it once was. The world that he's always known got turned upside down because he received Jesus. Because he couldn't go back, because he did something without even thinking about it, but he did it and he meant it. The very end of the Bible verse, he said, Lord. He called Jesus his Lord. Jesus wasn't a good idea. He wasn't a belief system. He wasn't somebody to hang out with on the weekends. He was his Lord. And that meant very clearly that his life had to change entirely. Christ entered into his life and gave him a brand new life that he wasn't even looking for, but now he has it. And I think that we can all get on the same page and say this has to be a better life than the life that he was living before. He has sight, he has ability and powers now that he didn't even realize that he had. And he could deny Jesus yet still, just as we can. We have received his grace. We've all sinned, and we've been given the gift of a new life every time we ask for it. But we could deny Jesus just as much as this man could still deny Jesus. We could choose to see the God in front of us who wants us to love him, to be with him, to follow him, to give our life to him, or we can go our own way. Christ changed his life. I know that he's changed some of your lives, and he's continuing to change your lives. I know this because I talk to you. And if you've decided that it's stopped, then come talk to me some more, because until it is that you walk on water, it's not done. He's not done with you. So I want to leave you with this. When you confess Christ as your Lord and your Savior, do you accept the life that comes with that? Or do you still live your own?